Okay, I think I am live now. Good evening, LinkedIn. Let's see who is able to join today. And if you're watching from YouTube, then be sure to like and subscribe. All right, let's see if I can see everyone jumping on. If you can let me know where you are joining in from in the comments, that would be great if you're on LinkedIn. I'd love to know where you are. I am in the Atlanta, Georgia metro, so in Atlanta. So if you're in Atlanta, come by and say hi to me. All right, so tonight I'm going to be talking about the 7 steps to launch into a healthcare quality career. We're going to talk about what healthcare quality is because it's an umbrella term and some people may not even be familiar with what it is. And I will go ahead and say that if you want the full version of this, I actually did a workshop recently, so just send me a direct message and I can get you the link for that. Because there is an actual hour-long version of what I'm about to share with you, but I'm going to condense it down to about 20 or so minutes for you all. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. And if I don't see them right away, I will answer them at the end. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for jumping on tonight. And Jody from Orlando. Awesome. Awesome. You're from Atlanta. Well, next time you come to Atlanta, Jody, stop by. Let's get together for maybe lunch or brunch or something. I feel like I visit Orlando pretty often, but I guess maybe it's once a year or so. Or at least come down to the beaches in Florida. All right, so let's get started here. All right, so what is healthcare quality? Healthcare quality in its shortest version is to create a safer healthcare system. And healthcare quality encompasses a lot of different types of roles because you can help affect the healthcare system, affect patient safety, affect how our colleagues, our frontline colleagues experience the healthcare system as well. So it's not just our patients, it's also those who are caring for the patient. But there's lots of roles that can fall under that umbrella. And I'm going to give you a few. And if any of you out there are in healthcare quality, you can post what your role is in the comments if you're comfortable doing that. But some of the roles that are under that healthcare quality umbrella is you could be a quality or performance improvement coordinator. You could be an outcomes coordinator. You could be in clinical informatics, which would be making the electronic medical record safer and easier to access and easier to get information for our frontline providers. You could be a regulatory reviewer. You could be a data analyst. You could be on the event reporting side where you investigate events after they happen. You could be on the preventative side where you try to prevent errors from happening. Utilization review falls under healthcare quality. Being a clinical navigator or population health or diversity, equity, and inclusion and access to care, right? And making sure our health outcomes are equitable. All of those things and many, many more fall under this umbrella of healthcare quality, which is how do we keep our system safer? How do we make the system safer for our patients? How do we make the system safer for those who are working in patient care roles? And my personal, I guess, passion behind healthcare quality is if everybody leaves a healthcare, who's going to be around to take care of my generation and the generation that follows, right? And unfortunately, our healthcare system is broken. We know it's broken. There's been a lot of work done to reduce error, prevent harm, and yet preventable harm still occurs. And so I feel like we can make a difference within our sphere of influence to improve the healthcare system for everyone involved. Sherry put in the comments, performance improvement, PSI review, insurance grievance, investigation. Yes, all of it. And I'm glad you said that, Sherry, because you can work on the insurance side too, to prevent fraud and abuse and waste and to make sure that care provided is medically necessary. And I know that's a hot topic about who's determining medical necessity, but those are roles that therapists, nurses, and other allied health professionals can also work in. So it's not always just lay people or people who are business minded. There are clinicians that are in those types of roles too, which is good because we want people with a clinical mindset to be able to make those kind of decisions. All right, so if you want to transition out of patient care and into a non-clinical role, and specifically I'm going to be talking about healthcare quality, there are 7 steps to do that. And these steps I have learned over the years through my own experience and also through coaching other clinicians who have pivoted out of patient care. So number 1 is define your path. And we'll go through each of these in just a moment. Number 2 is build your network. Number 3 is develop transferable skills. Number 4 is establish your brand. Number 5 is apply for the job. Step 6 is prepare for the interview. And step 7 is accept your new job. So step 1, define your path. And I say define your path because it really is your path. And your journey is going to look different than someone else's journey, right? And so I find that a lot of clinicians, when they get burned out or they want to do something different with their degree and they're like, okay, I'm ready to get away from patient care, they start throwing darts at a board, right? To say, I just want out. I'm going to apply for every job that's out there. But it's really important that you really figure out what you would love to do, what's going to fuel you, what's going to get you up in the morning, and run after that instead of running from something. So I like to help clinicians and the people that I work with figure out what their passions are, what their skills are, and what their strengths are, kind of like a Venn diagram, if you will, and find the marriage of all of those to figure out where would be a good fit for you in your next role versus applying to all the jobs, right? And so if you can narrow that search down, it's going to help so much better because employers can sense when you're unfocused or when you are kind of all over the place, even if that's not the energy that you're trying to give off. So it's really important to really narrow your search and figure out what you want to do before you start just applying for every job that's out there. So step 1 is define your path. Step 2 is build your network. And really you build your network before or as you're doing all these other steps, right? It's happening concurrently. But the sooner you can start building your network, even if you're in patient care now and you say you want to be in patient care forever, if that's you, there's never a wrong time to start building your network, getting to know people, because a lot of roles come from people you know. Sometimes it's not just what you know, it really is who you know. And it could be who you know as a recruiter. It could be a job that's posted in someone else's feed that you see because you're connected with them. It could be people that you can collaborate with or bounce ideas off of. It could be mentors. It could be a lot of different people that you are getting into your network and learning from and getting to know. But there's no better time to start than now. Obviously, LinkedIn is a big platform for me. The current role that I have, I did get, I say partially because I connected with the recruiter on LinkedIn. Did that get me the job? No, but did it maybe bring my resume up in a stack of others? Yes, I do think it did. But getting to know people on and offline is really helpful. There's also Facebook groups and things that you can get involved in that way too. But I think LinkedIn is a perfect platform for building your professional network. All right, so step 1 is define your path. Step 2 is build your network. Step 3 is develop transferable skills. And the time to develop transferable skills is actually before you need them. Now, as a therapist, as a clinician, you already have some transferable skills. You're a problem solver, you're able to multitask, you're able to think quickly on your feet and make great decisions, even when you don't have all the information. But you also want to volunteer for projects. You also want to take lead on some things. You might want to help do the schedule for your colleagues or for your patient or for the patients that is in your clinic, or maybe you want to join a task force, or maybe your boss needs help with a project, right? The more you can get involved and get to know other people on the interdisciplinary team, But two, be able to define a before and after of that project so you can get quantifiable data about how you impacted that particular thing that you did. That's going to go a long way, not only on your resume, but also what you're able to describe or discuss during your interview. So developing transferable skills. And a question that I get often is, you know, what if you're currently not working, maybe you're a stay-at-home parent and you want to get back into the workforce, or maybe your leader is not as supportive of you leaving a patient care role. Well, you can do you can develop skills in your other roles in your life. Maybe it's a church or community group that you're a part of, or maybe a small group that's outside of work, right? Or a hobby that you're doing. One time years ago, I was the secretary for my homeowners association, which if you've ever worked on a homeowners association, you know how much work that can be. And so that was a transferable skill for me for the things that I learned during that particular role. All right, so step one is define your path. Step two is build your network. Step three is develop transferable skills. Step four is establish your brand. So your brand is your professional identity and how you want future employers to see you. So that is your resume, that is your LinkedIn profile. If you're on LinkedIn, that is how you carry yourself and how you communicate. All of that goes into your professional brand, and it does make a difference. So for your resume in particular, you'll notice that when you're transitioning to a different role, a healthcare quality role, or any non-clinical role for that matter, the resume is further down the list, right? We're at step 4 now, right? And all these other things need to happen before you start working on your resume and updating your resume. And I would really encourage you not to take out your clinical resume and just try to revamp it, but really just start over, right? Because your resume has to tell a story about how you add value and how you made impact in your roles. And the resume's only job is to get you to the interview. So most employers, hiring managers are not spending that long on resumes. So you have to get their attention and you have to get it quickly. And so you don't have that much time to do that. So if the first thing on your resume is your clinical background, your clinical degree, how you want the, you know, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, or I'm a, occupational therapist, or I'm a speech language pathologist. If that's the first thing that's on your resume, then they're going to see you as a clinician, right? The other thing I will say is when you are doing your professional summary statement, which I encourage you to do instead of an objective statement, you really want to focus on the value you add and not what you want the employer to do for you, right? All right, and then for your LinkedIn profile, it's really going to mirror your resume. So I would encourage you to do that part first before you update your LinkedIn profile. But you could give your profile a little refresh if it just needs something to hold you over until you get to that point. All right, so step 1 is define your path. Step 2 is build your network. Step 3 is develop transferable skills. Step 4 is establish your brand. And step 5 is apply for the job. So now you're ready to actually put an application. And if you've done all the steps up to this point, then you're not applying for 100 jobs, right? Which can be really, really frustrating. And instead, you're applying for very focused, very specific roles, ones that you are more confident that you are qualified for, and ones that you're passionate about. I will say here that you do not have to meet every line item on the job description in order to apply. And I would encourage you not to wait till you meet all of the qualifications, because most of the time you might meet 80% of them, right? And still be able to take the role and grow within the role. So then once you apply for the job, you're going to prepare for the interview. You're going to practice. The more you practice, the easier it gets. The more you practice, the more confident you feel in the interview. I will say a couple of things. One, the interview is two-way, so you are also interviewing them. So keep that in mind. The other thing I will say is, and I lost my train of thought for just a second. You're also interviewing them, and you want to practice. You want to make sure that you practice even in roles that you might not actually want. It's still important that you practice interviewing so that you get more comfortable, so that you get, because the clinical interview is going to be different than a non-clinical one. So if you've been out of the interview game for a while, you want to know what kind of questions they're asking, what to expect. And so even if it's a role that you think, oh my gosh, I'll never get this role, right? Or it's not even a job I know if I want. If you're able to get an interview, it is good practice. All right, so step 5 was apply for the job. Step 6, prepare for the interview. And then step 7 is accept your new job. This is where you negotiate. Hopefully you've done your research by this point. Well, let me back up. After you prepare for the interview, after you have the interview, you always have a question for them, always have a follow-up question because it shows that you're interested. Follow up with a thank you note. I will say that. And then you accept your job, you negotiate, you know, the terms of your agreement, your salary, whatever that looks like. Hopefully you've done your research at that point. And then you're ready to prepare for your first day. All right, so I'm going to stop here for now and see what questions you all have. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. Again, if you're watching from YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want the full 1-hour workshop on this topic, then just send me a direct message and I can send you the link for that. Yes, Sherry, thank you for saying that. Ask questions at the interview to show that you've done your homework and are interested. I cannot stress this enough. Even if they've asked you, even if they've answered all your questions during the interview, always have a question. Sherry recommends, like, what are your top performance improvement projects right now? That's a great question. A question I like to ask is, you know, what does success look like in the first 3 months, 6 months of this role? What do you expect this incumbent to be able to do, to be able to get up and running to do? I like to ask, you know, why is this position open? Did someone leave the position or is it a growth position, right? And so you can find out where they need help, like Sherry said, so you can see what value you add, because again, you're interviewing them. Or you can find out what the culture is like and what your manager's leadership style is and all of that kind of stuff. But always have a question. All right, let's see. Do you all have any other questions or thoughts or anything that maybe was unclear with these steps? I think the big takeaway that I hope you get, one, is to slow down, figure out what roles is really going to be beneficial for you, what's going to make you the most joyful about going to work every day. We spend a lot of time at work, so we want to do work that matters, work that has purpose to it. The other thing I will say is there's lots of roles under the healthcare quality umbrella that you can still impact patients without being at bedside in direct patient care. And you can also impact your colleagues and work with interdisciplinary team. All right, so it is about 7:20 my time here in Atlanta. So if you don't have any other questions, or if questions come up later, feel free to message me. I'm happy to answer them. Or if there's another topic that you want me to cover, then let me know. I'm trying to go live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if there's something you want me to cover, let me know. Yes, Taryn, thank you for saying that. Okay, the hardest part of getting to the interview is often getting past the resume screening system. Any tips on how to get past that when the role specifically says RN? Yes, thank you for asking that, Taryn. So a couple of things I would say. One, find companies that value a therapist or another allied health professional in those types of roles. And there are companies out there. A couple of them off the top of my head is Encompass Health. That's a nationwide company. Navi Health, that's a nationwide company. And there's other companies too that are very, really value the skill set that a therapist or a non-nurse can bring. And the second thing I would say is if the role specifically says registered nurse and it's not, maybe the company doesn't realize realize that another discipline can do this role, right? And this is where reaching out to the recruiter, getting to know the recruiter is going to be very beneficial because job descriptions can change, right? And maybe all they've worked with is a nurse. So that's all they know or all that they recognize at the time that they want for this role. But reach out to the recruiter, they can reach out to the hiring manager, or you can reach out to the hiring manager if you know who that is. A lot of the jobs, many of the jobs will post who actually posted the role, but you can get to know them and reach out and see how much flexibility there is in the role. And then the third thing I will say is apply anyway. And I posted about this a couple of days ago, last week. And sometimes you apply anyway. You submit a cover letter, you put your resume in there, put some keywords from the job description, and you apply anyway. And I have gotten a role before that they specifically wanted a registered nurse or a physician. I applied anyway and ended up getting the role. Yeah, Sherry says, utilize your network. She got her last position because she knew a nurse who knew the quality director. Yes, that building your network is huge. It is really key to getting some of these roles, even the roles that says registered nurse. And Sherry, for those who don't know, is an occupational therapist by background. And so she's in a role that may have typically been reserved for a registered nurse, but she was able to also break that barrier. Also, when applying, often you have to put your salary expectations. Yes, sometimes this might be also be keeping, yes. So some companies require you to put something in the field of salary expectations. Sometimes you could put negotiable, sometimes it makes you put a number, right? And there's not really much we could do about that, except for to really do some good research on what the role may pay. I don't think it's worth necessarily listing a low salary because that's going to be where they start you at, and you might be leaving some money on the table. I think the best thing is to try to get in front of the recruiter so you can see if it's worth you applying, right? Because if it's so low below your salary expectations, then it might not be worth applying. The other thing I will say is, you really have to do your research with what different roles pay, and they're not necessarily paying you as your clinical degree, right? They're paying you for the role that you're coming into. So it's not always a lateral pay for that first role, right? Now you might have a different ceiling, so you can go up higher in the pay range once you get to that new role. So you might be taking a lateral move at first, but they're not paying you necessarily because you have that clinical degree. It is very competitive right now, but it's not impossible. Yeah, it is not impossible. PT, Sherry says PT has been hired for lean and for physician performance review. Yes. Yeah, and again, it's getting into some of those organizations that really value what we bring to the table. Yeah, Glassdoor has great information. Salary.com has some great information. Sometimes LinkedIn posts the salary ranges for that position if they know it. Yeah. All right, these are great questions. Great questions. Thank you, Taryn. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sherry, for jumping into and sharing your experience. I'm going to talk to Sherry about maybe sharing her story so you all can also hear how she made the leap from operations into healthcare quality, because I think she has a very unique story to share as well. But if you have any other questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm usually quick with my direct messages unless it's like on a weekend or something, but I'm pretty quick to respond. This will be on replay on LinkedIn. Also, this will be on YouTube if you're on YouTube. And I will talk to you all later.